been very patient waiting for results regarding the elections here in the states of Arizona. And we know midterm elections were on Tuesday. It is now Saturday. People have been asking what is taking so long, and apparently that's because there has been a 70% increase of mail-in ballots that were actually taken in on election day itself. So this has made it a much longer process for election workers to go through, verify, and count those ballots. But again, once that gets underway, we will take you there live for the latest updates. All right, we're going to go ahead and take you back to statements, remarks from the latest White House press briefing.
So we haven't finalized plans, but I have been in touch with senior members of the President-elect's team because we want to be able to coordinate very closely with them. Whether that involves me going down there or some folks coming here, we're still working out. But I think that you can expect face-to-face engagement at high levels between the incoming team and our team so that we can hit the ground running once President-elect Lula becomes president on January 1st.
Follow up, what kind of challenge do you see with the new government of Brazil, for example, related to the Russia war in Ukraine? Lula said he will talk with Russia and Ukraine to try to end the war. What do you think about that? And today, Secretary Kerry met with Lula's team and they discussed help to protect the Amazon. What kind of assistance is the United States considering?
So President Biden has had a very long-standing view that it is the obligation of the United States and other major economies to help Brazil protect its rainforest. The same goes for other countries with significant rainforests like Indonesia. And so he's going to look for an early opportunity to sit with the incoming president, who has expressed a real commitment and motivation to protect the Amazon, and talk about a variety of forms of assistance we can give. Not just technical assistance, but financial assistance as well. That's something President Biden sees as a real priority. And with respect to Russia's war on Ukraine, President Biden had an opportunity briefly to speak with the president-elect shortly after his victory, and they agreed that they would talk in detail about all of these issues, including the Ukraine issue, when they have the chance to meet in person. I'm not going to get ahead of that conversation, because I think the two of them should have the chance to talk before I characterize it.
Yeah. Thank you.
General Milley yesterday had a pretty staggering assessment of the casualties from Russian casualties in this war so far, saying that 100,000 have been wounded or killed. Can you discuss what impact is this having on Putin domestically in terms of support for this war, and just how long do you think Russia can keep operating at this casualty rate?
Well, the numbers are really quite striking, and we're talking about just an immense amount of suffering on the part not just of those who have died or been injured in the war in Ukraine, but their families and their communities across Russia. And one of the reasons why we believe that Russia should end this war and leave Ukraine is for the good of those families and communities inside Russia. It is difficult at the moment for us to characterize the internal political situation inside Russia. For one thing, you've got the tight control of the Kremlin on the communications apparatus and on the political apparatus in that country. For another, all of us in this room see surprises in our own domestic political context, so trying to be effective armchair analysts of another country's political process is something we should have significant humility about. But we are watching closely for these impacts, economically, socially, and beyond, because you simply cannot visit upon your country this level of suffering without it having reverberating impacts of various kinds. So we will have to see how that unfolds.
And how long do you think they could keep operating at this level of casualties?
Well, first, it's clear that the fact of Russian military losses on the battlefield is having an impact on their ability to hold territory in Ukraine. We've seen that in Kharkiv. We've seen that in the announcement that they have made about Kherson. So it's having an impact. But the larger how long question is not one that I can put a timetable on, because war is inherently unpredictable. And so all we can do is continue to try and make sure that for our purposes, we're we're giving Ukraine what it needs to do its part, and then we will, of course, analyze how Russia is postured and positioned as we go forward.
Yes. So I wanted to ask two questions about the meeting with President Xi. One, yesterday, the president did not commit to telling President Xi that they would, or the U.S. would, defend Taiwan militarily. How should Taiwan be interpreting that answer? And secondly, the Treasury released a report today saying that, or criticizing China for not being more transparent about its foreign exchange policy, and explicitly calling it a failure. Will the two leaders speak about that tomorrow as well?
So on your first question, as many of you know, having seen President Biden go into consequential meetings with foreign counterparts, he doesn't like to characterize what he's going to say to them. He likes to actually go say it to them. And as for how Taiwan might react to that, we'll have the opportunity as an administration to brief Taiwan on the results of that meeting. And I'm confident that they will feel very secure and comfortable in the United States' position when it comes to our support for peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait and our commitment to the Taiwan Relations Act, which does commit the United States to ensuring we're providing the articles for Taiwan's defense. Yeah. Oh, and you asked about the FX report. I would just say that this has been a long-standing concern of the United States. It's been reflected in previous reports. It doesn't come as a significant surprise, but it is an area of significant concern for the United States. And I can't tell you standing here today whether that particular topic will come up among the wide range of things we have to discuss with the PRC.
Questions on Egypt. Can you give us a little bit of details about the bilateral between the President and President Sisi? Is regional security is one of the issues going to be discussed? And on the meeting with Xi Jinping, can you give us some kind of assessment of how do you see Russia position vis-a-vis, China position vis-a-vis Russia? Do you think that you were able to neutralize him from supporting Russia so far? And what more do you think that the President can raise issues to make sure that they will stay the way it is and not involved with the war in Ukraine?
So first on the PRC, we have not, since President Biden and President Xi spoke some months ago, seen the PRC providing military equipment, weapons for use on the battlefield in Ukraine. And we have not seen kind of wholesale efforts to backfill or undermine the sanctions regime, though of course the PRC has continued its economic relationship with Russia over the course of the past many months. One other positive signal that we have seen was during the recent visit by the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, to the PRC, the statement on nuclear weapons and Xi Jinping specifically talking about the need to avoid the use of or even the threat of the use of nuclear weapons anywhere in the world. And in that context of that conversation, we regarded that as constructive. On the other hand, we believe that, of course, every country in the world should do more to prevail upon Russia, especially those who have relationships with Russia, to end this war and leave Ukraine. President Biden will have the opportunity to talk in detail about the Ukraine crisis.
All right, we are cutting away from this to bring you the latest updates from officials in Maricopa County regarding the elections.
Men to my right probably don't need any introduction, but I'll do it anyway because it gives me something to say. I'm Fields Mosley. I'm the communications director here. Sheriff Paul Penzone has been kind enough to join us this afternoon and talk a little bit about security issues, answer any questions you might have. Also, Chairman Bill Gates from the Board of Supervisors here in Maricopa County is here to say a few words and answer any questions you might have. And we'll do our best to answer those. If it's something we need to research or something like that, certainly we're happy to do that via email and get you those answers as quickly as possible. So with that, Sheriff Penzone.
Well, I just want to begin by thanking everybody for your patience, because I know that it's been a long haul to this point, and there's a lot of work being done. And you have a job to do, which is to cover the story and to cover different perspectives. We've asked a lot of you, and you've been very cooperative. So let me just begin by saying thank you for understanding the challenges that we face in working with the parameters that we've asked you to consider and abide by. I also think it's important, I get to work in this context where obviously we have a great responsibility, and I'm really proud of the men and women of Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and our law enforcement partners and the job that they're doing. But because we're in this space, we get a chance to see everything from the inside out. And folks can get emotional. There's a lot at stake. They can sometimes act irresponsibly. There are a lot of folks who are very comfortable in saying things that are unkind and oftentimes volatile or disrespectful. But it's important for folks to be adults in the room when some are acting like children. And I don't mean that to cast disparaging words towards anybody individually, but we know there's some people that just get overzealous and do some things that give us cause for concern. Otherwise, the sheriff wouldn't be here talking to you. But somebody who I think has done an exceptional job being the adult in the room, being very thoughtful with the processes, sharing information on a regular basis, and making sure that as across the nation, a lot of folks are saying, why is it taking so long in Arizona, that you have someone who is taking the lead to speak to you every day to help you understand why. And that's Chairman Bill Gates. I just want to commend him because I think he's done an exceptional job of making sure that everything that can be shared is shared in a timely manner, that you understand why there are challenges and complications, but ultimately there's a commitment to one thing that is most important, that every legal vote is counted and that the results are 100% accurate. And Stephen Richer obviously works in that space with him, Recorder Richer, but I'm not a person who believes in political lines. I believe in people, and I think he's done an exceptional job. So I just want to start off by saying that because it has made our job easier also. Now, as far as today, it's the first day that we've seen really a crowd gather outside. You've been here since the beginning when I made the commitment to how invested we would be with the resources and equipment to ensure the safety of the people in this building and every ballot is protected. Today we saw a group come out, and I professed leadership means being thoughtful with your words and recognizing the consequences or what your words can provoke others to. And we saw yesterday there were some tweets going out from at least one elected official summoning folks to come here today and to be heard. And it gave me some cause for concern and some pause, because you may be well-intended, but that doesn't mean that everyone who responds to your calling has the same intentions, and it can empower them into a space where bad things can happen. So we were very concerned. We made sure that we once again dedicated additional resources because we want to see a safe environment at the cost of other needs around the county for law enforcement, at the cost of taxpayer dollars. Deputies, in addition to those we had stationed here, came to the facility to make sure everything was safe. Now, as for the crowd outside, they were peaceful. They had an objective. They stayed within that scope, and they left in a reasonable amount of time. I did have some safety concerns, which is there were some folks marching in the street, and we want to make sure that area is safe. But fortunately for us, we have a great partner in the Phoenix Police Department who showed up, and they helped us address the problem in the street to make sure that no one was in harm's way and that people were abiding by the law. Aside from that, there was one other instance actually I do want to point out, which is there was one person who I guess had some heat exhaustion or something to that extent. Our deputies cared for them. We called paramedics, and that person, my understanding, is fine. Ultimately, we're getting closer to the end of this process, and my hope is that all the answers come to rise to the top. Every election is counted and ends in the next few days without any need for recounts. We'll stay here through the duration, though, but thus far into it, I just want to say thank you. I think that the community has responded in a very positive way. I think those folks who came out today were law-abiding, and they had their chance to express their First Amendment. We respected that. And this is kind of an odd one. I'm going to give a shout-out to somebody. I guess there's a young man named Charlie Kirk, is part of an organization. I have a whole lot of familiarity with it, but he sent out a message and said, hey, be law-abiding, and please, don't gather around the county facilities and let folks do their job, or something to that extent. And it seems as though his words resonated. He's viewed as a leader in some factions and some groups, and they responded to it. That's helpful for law enforcement. If you really care about this building, this vote, these people, and this law enforcement community, then help us get our job done, and those are the types of things that are helpful. So that sums it up for me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. You want to do that now, or you want to do it at the end?
Let's do it at the end.
Okay, I apologize. I'll turn it over to Supervisor Gates now, but thank you.
Hi, good to see everyone again. Thank you very much, Sheriff Penzone, for the kind words, but more importantly, thank you for your leadership of this community, Maricopa County, and helping everyone to feel secure through this process. As I've said before, it's really sad that we have to think about these things in the context of an election in a democratic republic, but we do. We know that because of what happened right outside of this building in 2020. But again, Sheriff Penzone has been an incredible partner of the Board of Supervisors, Recorder Richer, And then along with our other local law enforcement, City of Phoenix and others, and our federal partners, this didn't just materialize here in the last few days. This is a project that Sheriff Penzone has been working on in collaboration with many for months. And again, I just thank you. I thank your team, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone in this building that we're all so grateful for what you've done. First of all, I wanted to say thank you again to our folks who are working so hard back behind us here and throughout the building, and we continue to process through the ballots and tabulate the ballots and report new numbers, and we're going to continue to do that in a way that is moving along very efficiently and also ensuring that all these votes are counted accurately. As I mentioned during yesterday's press conference, the mandatory hand count was started today, going along very nicely. This is a very important part of the process, particularly when we have so many questions that are raised out there, and that's what we do in our country, is we raise questions and then we allow people to respond to those, and we accept those answers if we think that they're justified. And this mandatory hand count will be able to demonstrate to all of us whether the machines are doing an accurate job. And remember, who's involved in this mandatory hand count? It's Republicans and Democrats, having eyeballs on everything, participating in it to ensure that the machines are working the way that they should. As far as we are concerned with vote counts today, we're anticipating that we will have our next update in the vote totals in the 6 o'clock hour. Again, reminder, 6 o'clock hour, so that doesn't necessarily mean at 6 or 6:01. But we should all be looking forward to an update in the vote totals at that time, and we are anticipating, again, a similar amount of votes will be reported this evening as we've seen in the last couple of nights. And with that, I will turn it back to Fields Mosley.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions now. I'll start on this side of the room, and let's go to Kyung Law.
Question for the sheriff. Outside, they were announcing that there's going to be another gathering here on Monday. Do you anticipate the same level of law enforcement response that you had today?
Yes, that's understanding also that Monday there will be a gathering again. And, so we keep a foundation here, a foundation to ensure that we are prepared to manage or mitigate any potential challenges or issues on a smaller scale. But we try to stay in front of the information, so fortunately for this facility and for the people therein, we're going to move people here as quickly as we need to address the volume of potential protesters, activists, community members, whomever are outside. I just want to remind everybody, there are a lot of ways that you can express your concerns. You can, find ways to improve who we are as a community and a nation. If being out front for you is one of those things you feel empowers you, then that's wonderful. But just understand, it comes at a cost. And every time we see a larger gathering outside, that means I'm dedicating more deputies inside. Because I will not, I have professed this and I will continue to, I will not allow for, nor will I stand for, any threat to this facility, the votes, or the people. So we're not going to wait for you to do harm and then try to react to it. We're going to prepare in advance so that you can't do harm. So there are families out there, there are calls for service, there are deputies who are going to go without the volume of backup or support that they may need because we have to prioritize this facility. So if you want to come stand out front, that's your prerogative, that's your right, that's your, your freedom. But you are, in one way or another, undermining the sheriff's office ability to address the other needs in our community because this becomes a drain on resources. So we're going to be here through the duration, and if it's one day or 5 more days of folks out front, we'll be here for all of it.
And you just thanked Charlie Kirk for helping you today with that tweet. You want to ask for more help on Monday?
Yeah, listen, I'm the type of person, I'm going to speak to those who create problems for us and point out that it's not acceptable, and for those who do things that are thoughtful and responsible that help us, navigate this unique space. So again, I don't know Mr. Kirk, I don't know his organization, anything about it, but I appreciate the fact that he understands, at least in that communication, that he could be helpful to us, and he was. So for others, there are elected officials who are calling for things, and that feels powerful. You call on something, and suddenly you see the crowd summoned, and you think that you know, you're the almighty Oz. Well, guess what? You know, at some point in time, we have to address that issue, and we're going to pull the curtain on you, and you're just back there with the handles. But there's a lot of other things going on for people that are in harm's way, and it creates jeopardy. So be thoughtful. Don't treat this like it's just a show. It's bigger than that. It's more important than that. And recognize there's real people back here doing a job, and they get scared when they see people out there yelling, you know, pretty offensive things in this direction. I don't know, do I just come back to you, or how does this work here?
If they have more questions for the sheriff, Austin's with Fox News.
Sheriff Penzone, is it your understanding that the protest activity is finished for today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I could say that group, from my understanding, has diminished and gone away for today. I have no idea who's in store for what later on in the day, so we'll just kind of keep things as they are for us and manage it as it goes.
Leading up to the election, during the press conferences, you guys all mentioned if, you know, politicians or people on the candidates used rhetoric, or on the ballot used rhetoric that would incite violence, that you guys would be looking into working with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. Are you guys considering bringing charges against Wendy Rogers for her tweet that resulted in today's protest?
Well, there weren't any criminal actions that I'm aware of today. But I will tell you this, and I was talking to Supervisor Gates. Listen, if you are an elected official and you are doing things to provoke a crowd to come out front here that can lead to the point of there, you know, acts of violence or crimes, not only should we put you at the top of a criminal report and charge you or request charges against you, but I feel like we should send you the bill. Every time I bring deputies here that I didn't need otherwise because you as an elected official create a problem that causes me to respond, you're a state legislator or senator or whomever you are, then I feel like the county should send you the bill for the resources that we're committing because of your political action that puts others in harm's way.
Will you be doing that?
Well,
Since you did have to send deputies out today?
Will I be doing that today? I don't know if we do it today because I don't know if the escalation of deputies today was substantial, but I'm just putting you on notice that don't put me in that place where I have to make that decision. And I'm not even sure the legalities of it, but I'm sure happy to go down that path to see what's appropriate. Can we just stay here until...
For the sheriff?
Yes.
Okay.
And Sheriff, did you have a personal conversation with Wendy Rogers about her tweet? We also noticed that a few hours later she then sent out another tweet asking people not to come by. Was that as a result of a conversation that you two perhaps had?
No, I haven't spoken to her. I appreciate the follow-up because it seems as though, you know, between those two tweets that was, and quite frankly, thank you for coming inside because you are the honey of the bees. So when you're inside, it seems like people are less interested outside. But those three elements, the perfect storm coming together, then the crowd shrunk considerably fast. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you than that.
And then just to follow up on that, you mentioned that the crowd remained mostly peaceful. Was there any heckling of the people towards the people inside, towards your deputies as well, that concerns you at any point?
Oh, no, I think I was the lightning rod. I got most of the heckling today, but it's not the first time, it won't be the last. So, yes, you're welcome, everybody. I'm happy to be that person if they want to heckle me, but otherwise I don't think that, at least I'm not aware of anything beyond that point. It seems as though when I left the immediate area, then they were, you know, very kind to the Phoenix police officers, and my understanding is they were very kind to the deputies. So.
At what point, Sheriff, do you have to move them back? When did you make that call? I mean, obviously today there was a crowd, but...
Well, we had two unique circumstances that occurred today. One, unbeknownst to us, there's some construction, so there were some barricades set up that actually restricted the curb lane on the south side of the road. And those who showed up today thought maybe that was parking for them, and we had to have the Phoenix Police Department move those vehicles off the road and pull those barricades. The other aspect was some of those out there were marching in the street, which not only is it against the law, but it's unsafe. So we want to make sure that that does not occur. Now, if these things occur and people are unwilling to abide by our directives, then you're looking at situations where do we issue citations or how do we best solve that problem? We want it to be with the least amount of lawful intervention as possible as long as you're cooperative. But if you're uncooperative, then you put us in a position to respond a little more aggressively.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering, you've mentioned that before that this is a strain on your resources to keep having to have deputies come out here and you're already understaffed. So I'm curious about what teams specifically are you taking deputies off of when you're bringing them out here to deal with this, and what's not getting done specifically?
Sure. So, you know, in an organization of law enforcement, you wear multiple hats. So a lot of the deputies that you see out there, some are going to be coming from patrol districts where they would be responding for calls for service. And what we do is we end up going minimum staffing and pulling some of those folks back in an organization that's already thin on staffing. The folks that work, in specialty assignments that track different threats in different spaces, investigators that work on major crimes and general crimes, things like crimes against children, robberies, murders, anything like that. Those investigators may either be in uniform here or working as backups for investigations should there be a crime committed. Our tactical resources, so our SWAT teams, work in some capacity here where they are on site when needed. And then we have what's called field force. Field force are deputies that work in the field, but when these issues occur, they put on the battle armor, for lack of a better description, and they stand by with the more advanced equipment to repel crowds if it's needed. So there's nobody on site that their sole job is let's wait around for a crowd to gather and that's all we do. They have primary responsibilities, and this is their 1A job where, okay, the bell's been rang and we had a bigger issue to deal with, so we're going to come together and we're going to suppress that and push that threat back away from people and from facilities.
And a follow-up on that, is there a dollar amount that you perhaps have of how much resources you have dedicated to ensuring that this is safe and the security that you put forward here?
Well, it sounds like you're asking, do we dedicate a specific number and try to work within that scope? Unfortunately, it's a blank check that I send over to the supervisors at the end and say, here's how much it cost. And it does come out of my budget. But we've had the conversations in the past because we've seen what's occurred that we literally have to kind of allocate a line item with an estimated amount of money for the course of the year that is specifically to civil disturbances, major events such as these that are out of the ordinary. And it goes back a few election cycles, and I want to say it was even before I was sheriff out in Fountain Hills, where we saw an escalation there where suddenly we had to account for it. But make no mistake about it, it gets in the 7 digits. I think the last one that we had over the course of time, it was up over $1 million in additional supplemental resources specifically for events such as these. But you can't put a value on what is also neglected. Things that we have to follow up on after the fact. Me making decisions that sometimes get me in trouble because I have to go, okay, public safety has to be my #1 priority, and there's other responsibilities that I have. And if it seems as though I'm being intentionally negligent there, I'm not. But I have to decide where the priorities are, and you're the priorities. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Oh, I was so close.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm curious from the two of you, actually. The chants we heard out there were count all the legal votes. How do you combat that when that is what's occurring in here? I think we're all in this business of trying to explain the process and combat misinformation. So how, from a law enforcement standpoint, and then someone who's obviously running the process, how do you combat that?
There's an interesting saying, and it's pretty fundamental, but hopefully it speaks for itself. The most difficult thing to disprove is a negative. When someone claims something that didn't happen and they want you to disprove it, oftentimes there is no evidence to disprove something that never happened, and it just lives then in infamy, where it's kind of like, well, we said it, they didn't show us that it didn't happen. Well, because there was nothing to indicate that it did. And I think it's a lot of what goes on with misinformation. Say whatever you want and let that other person figure out how to defend it. It's a saying, a lie travels around the world, 10,000 times before the truth can even get started. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing people empowered by saying things that make them feel good, and they're not accountable for it, and they lie. And then good men like Supervisor Gates and Recorder Richer and others, instead of focusing on getting this job done, they're out here talking to the community saying, trust us, we're good, real people that care about the community. That's why we're public servants. But you're distracting us with all this other nonsense that he's had to answer to for a week now, so I feel for him. Not as much as when I'm out there getting heckled, but a little bit. Anything else? God bless. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that as well. Actually, I think I'm on the same page with the people saying count the legal votes. That's what I've been saying. We can't just throw every vote in there. We have to only count the legal ones. That's what the signature verification process is about. Everything that we've been going through that I know, again, a lot of people across the country are frustrated with who haven't followed Maricopa County elections or Arizona elections for the past couple of decades. But that's exactly what we're doing, making sure they're legal, and then they get counted.
What votes are you releasing tonight? What votes are we releasing? Do you expect the same timetable Sunday?
Not sure on the timetable for Sunday. This will be the very large majority of the votes that will be released this evening will be late earlies dropped off on election day. Not all of them, though, but the great majority of them.
Going off of Taylor's question, so for months you guys have been doing weekly press conferences, making this the most transparent election ever, and really since 2020, I guess. You've responded to tens of thousands of phone calls, emails, you have a section on your website, your Twitter account, and yet the conversations I had outside, a couple of the things folks are saying, this department is intentionally releasing Democrat-leaning ballots first. They're intentionally delaying the release of results. Every day this week, you've addressed these claims and debunked them. Is there a way that you reach these folks, and we know that they're all over the country, people with similar beliefs. Is there a way that you reach them at this point?
Well, again, thank you for acknowledging that we've done a lot of work. Our communications team has done an incredible job to get the word out. But I guess what I've heard here is that these folks listen to Charlie Kirk. So maybe if Charlie Kirk would take the facts down that we're presenting and share that with the folks, they would feel better. Again, this issue about selecting certain votes to report, let me be very clear about this again. FIFO, first in, first out. That's how we do this. We're not picking them from certain parts of town. In fact, we can't do that because we have a vote center model. So let's say we have someone who lives in Gilbert, but they work in Surprise. They go to the vote center in Surprise on their lunch hour. Where's that from? Okay, that's my point. So it is irrelevant, and it is an incredible distraction. And for I guess people who are following this, it's not a distraction for our folks. It's not a distraction for me, quite frankly. They're trying to make it a distraction, but it's not. Yes?
Sorry to mention this. Is the hand count audit, is it completed?
It's not completed yet. They're still going on, and I believe it's going to be completed tomorrow. Yes?
So at Thursday's press conference, you said, and quote, "Quite frankly, it's offensive for Carrie Lake to say that these people behind me are slow-rolling this." Now, these political comments that have been made, usually prompted by questions, do you worry that this could be creating greater unfounded distrust in the process?
No, I don't at all. It's not a political statement. I'm responding to statements that were made about the people who are behind me. That's my job. My job is to work with our other directors here, to work with Stephen Richer and make sure that this is managed properly. If there are things that need to be fixed, we're going to do that. At the same time, though, if unfair allegations are being made, I'm going to respond to those because we don't want that misinformation out there. If people out there in the community think that we're slow rolling this, the vote, the release of the votes, then that starts to create further concerns with the process. So I'm standing up for the process, but I'm not, this is not a political statement. Yeah.
The ballots today, where are they coming from?
So the ballots, as I mentioned over there, the types of ballots are mainly late earlies dropped off on election day. Again, from where they are coming from across the valley because, like I said, we have a vote center system. So again, if there are other analysts who want to look at this information on where these people live and send out tweets about that, that's great. But that's not what I do. What I do is work with these folks, make sure that the vote counts get out, everything is going on track, only legal votes are being counted. But I'm not up here, and I've never been up here to say where these individual votes may be coming from. First in, first out. Yes?
You said it's mostly election day drop-offs.
Yes.
What other buckets are in there?
So in addition to that, we would have some more of the votes coming out of the box 3. We'll have some of that, and and curing, and then also where we have cured signatures. So we don't know when. That could be from a couple weeks ago, or other provisionals that might be cured. Let's say someone comes in with their ID that they didn't have on election day. So again, but these are a small number compared to the large majority being late earlies dropped off on election day. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. For those of us who spent time here in 2020 as well, there's a notable difference in the way that your department is responding to the disinformation. It's more aggressive, much more assertive, and getting out first in front of it and then coming here and answering all the questions. What prompted this process that you're doing now, and I know it's no fun right now, but do you feel like you're doing a better job than you were in 2020 from lessons learned?
This is a completely different world that we're living in than 2020. I think our team did a great job communicating in 2020. But since 2020, we've gone through a lot here. This board was sort of placed in the national spotlight as it related to certifying the election results in 2020. And then in 2021, we had the so-called audit from the cyber ninjas, and that was just a constant flow of misinformation that we became adept at responding to. We began to understand the importance of responding to that misinformation accurately and quickly. And so we've continued that because sadly, not making a political statement here, but sadly, there continues to be a lot of misinformation from all different sources that are out on social media right now as we go forward in this count. So that's why we have to continue to do this. This is not something that I relish, but it's something that we believe is very important to do, and we'll continue to do it.
Let's take 2 more questions. I've got box 10 back there.
Yeah, so you've talked continuously about the tireless work of these folks, about how many hours they're working to put forth this count. When they see giant protests like this, or when they see the misinformation on Twitter, can you speak to the morale and what that does?
You know, the morale is good back here. This is why these people do this work, to be here when it matters. And this matters like it never has before, honestly. So the eyes of the world are on Maricopa County, and these people could be doing a lot of other things, but they've chosen to be here. And frankly, for the folks who were out there, folks who came to protest and gather, I won't even use the word protest, to gather peacefully, and that's what they did. May have said a couple unkind things to Sheriff Penzone, but I know he can handle it. But other than that, they came, it's 70 degrees out here, nice weather, and everything was peaceful, and they're headed home. So I don't think anyone here is bothered by that. There are things that happened in 2020 that I know they were bothered by, but so far, so good on that. But let's continue to do that. Let's show our best, Maricopa County, and I have no doubt that we're going to. We're getting closer to the end of this every day.
One more question, right here.
Not to put the cart in front of the horse here, but we are looking at some really tight races here, specifically in those high-watched state level races. What is it going to look like? Can you kind of give us an insight to the process of what a recount could look like now that we've extended those margins?
So this question with respect to the automatic recount, under Arizona law, there's actually been a change in that. So it used to be we would only have an automatic recount if the margin was 0.1%. Okay, and so it was very rare, very rare. We did have one in the primary in a justice of the peace race, but very rare. Now it's gone from, again, the state legislature changed the law in this session, going from 0.1% to 0.5. So if it's within 0.5%, we will have an automatic recount. And if that's within the state, okay, if that's the margin within the state, then we'll have an automatic recount across the state, including in Maricopa County. It would be after the Board of Supervisors votes to certify the election. It'll be after the election is certified at the state level. So it'll be in early December that process would start, and it would be in whatever races happen to be within that margin. Now, just for a little historical background, in 2020, if this new law had been in effect, we actually would have had 5 races that would have gone to an automatic recount. So we have no idea what that's going to turn out to be, but if that happens, the team is ready to be here in December. I think they might have the eggnog out and candy canes, but we'll see how all that works out. But again, thank you everyone for your time today, and be looking for new numbers in the 6 o'clock hour.
Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, an update there from officials in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona, on the elections, on the ballot counting process. They say there will be another drop of ballots later tonight. And we also heard from the sheriff of the county, who says there has been a group of protesters outside of the elections department. Let me just switch that shot there. He says there has been a group of protesters outside of the elections department, but that group has been peaceful. But just as a precaution, the department, the sheriff's county, has gone ahead and added resources to monitor the area. Of course, we will continue to monitor the latest regarding the midterm elections here in the state of Arizona. Of course, people across the states still waiting to find out who will be the next governor. Will it be Kari Lake or will it be Katie Hobbs? We're going to take a break. We'll have more after this.